legend of the Flying Head, also known as the Legend of the Great Head, or Legend of Lake Sacandaga. Sacandaga, as it is called today, is a lake that's located in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York, in a town called Lake Pleasant. It was once believed by the people of the Kunenhráyenhnen, or the Mohawks, that the lake of the Black Bear's Paw was the water that fed the Great Mohegan or Hudson River. Not one tribe of the Iroquois Confederacy ever stayed year-round in this region. The winters are harsh and long in the mountains beyond the Mohawk River. However, stories were passed on from generation to generation about a forgotten people who were harsh and merciless. They lived in a village at the foot of a mountain on a hill that overlooks the still waters, what's now called Lake Pleasant, and the Bear's Paw, or what we now call Lake Sacandaga. One year, a winter with hardly any snow froze the roots of edible vegetation and drove away the deer and moose to the valleys and lands of the Kunenhráyenhnen. Even the fish under the frozen water seemed to have disappeared. When spring arrived, the forgotten people began to die of starvation, and many talked of migration. This concern was brought before the council of 7 elders by the young men of the tribe. The young men spoke of taking their canoes to the Great Lake, Ontario, and settling in the lands on the other side. Then they would send a runner to a generous nation to provide rice, and they would make a new home in the plains of overflowing game and rich soil for planting. The 7 elders listened and became troubled. They did not believe such a place existed. They also feared the hostile tribes which surrounded them outside the mountains. The idea of leaving their ancestral home of fresh streams and hidden valleys was unthinkable. The famine that falls upon our people is a punishment of the sins we of old had committed long ago, said the chief among the elders. The Master of Life is just, and we must accept the punishment till spring returns to our land. Those who try and flee from the punishment will face great hardship ahead. It is better to die here than suffer a fate worse than death. Suddenly, one of the young men stood to his feet and shouted, "You have heard from their own tongues of the evil they have committed. Must we suffer with them? Let them die, so we may be free from the Master of Life's wrath. Then let us leave these lands." After the young man said this, he raised his tomahawk and buried it deep within the skull of an old man next to him. With great cries that echoed over the lakes, the young men, one by one, took the life of an elder nearest to them. elders never spoke or faced the execution without a sign of fear. There was then silence in the valley. The young warriors looked in horror of what they had done. They then knew that the Master of Life would not be pleased. So they cut off the heads of the elders and tried to purify their misdeeds by burning the bodies and tossing their ashes in the wind. The leader of the young men who first drew his tomahawk led 6 others in separate canoes with a head of an elder in each. Once they reached the center of Sacandaga Lake, each warrior passed their head to the young chief. He tied the scalp of each head together to form a chain and then tied a heavy stone at the end. As the heads were slowly released within the dark waters, the Master of Life caused the young chief's canoe to sink, and the chain became entangled around his feet. He then gave a horrible scream as he sank below the waves, but the others didn't even look back and raced their canoes to the shore in fear. The next morning, the sun calmly rose and revealed some oily bubbles floating where the young chief's canoe sank. On the surface of the water formed a smooth, darkish circle, which did not ripple in the breeze. The tribe stared at the spot on the lake with curiosity and wondered what it was. On the second day, the still, sullen blot remained unmoved. On the third day, the circle became like marbled greenish slime that changed in appearance coming from beneath. On the fourth day, the color took form as if seaweed was floating atop of the water with its roots extended beneath. On the fifth day, the sun revealed a dome floating upon the surface. The green algae-like substance began to drip off the dome and revealed thick, wet, black hair. Some of the villagers claimed they saw eyes peeking beneath a long, wet fur. On the sixth day, the object was fully out of the water, floating in place on the lake's surface. There was no question. It was a monstrous head. It just stared upon the village with a motionless glare. The tribe didn't know what to do. Without a leader, they were too afraid to leave and face enemy tribes. On the seventh day, a pair of bat-like wings with claws spread from behind the head's ears. At first, it remained motionless, staring at the village. Suddenly, a great wind came across the lake and lifted the head into the air. The wings began to flap, and the head glided towards the village. The pterosaur-like creature opened its wide mouth and revealed only fangs. The villagers ran in different directions. They scattered into the swamps, the forest, the lakes, and the caverns, hiding from the monstrous No one knows what happened to that forgotten tribe. It is said that they all turned to stone, appearing like statues, curled in a fetal position with fear on their faces. Over the years, rain eroded away any sign that these statues may have once been human. The Kunenhráyenhnen, or the Flying Head, was then seen terrorizing neighboring villages in the Mohawk Valley. It is said that a woman saved her tribe by tricking the beast into eating hot, burning stones. The Flying Head then flew back into the mountains where it came from. Some say that it rests beneath the waters of Sacandaga Lake and won't awaken until the last days of this earth, when the Master of Life gives a final judgment on those who do evil deeds.